Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier. I trust the week's gone well. Whenever I see the date, I'm like, wow, where did the days go? This is an audio from Simon Wolf. He is a lawyer with Amsterdam Partners. And this is a conversation we had yesterday regarding Bobby Wine. And it's about 3 minutes. It's worth listening to what Simon's got to say. He also tweeted this image of free Bobby Wine, and it took me back to something I wrote in 2014 after the overthrow of beautiful Blaise Compaoré, and I called it Ouagadougou's signal to sub-Saharan Africa. What's clear is that a very strong, very informed and very connected African youth demographic, many have characterized this as a demographic dividend, that's a debate for another day, which for beautiful Blaise Compaoré turned into a demographic terminator. And I was saying this young, informed, connected African youth demographic is set to alter the existing equilibrium between the rulers and the subjects, and that a rebalancing has begun. And I think what we're watching here is exactly that happening right in front of our eyes. Trump says the stock market will crash if he's impeached. Interesting. My piece was about the strong dollar, the king dollar, currency puzzles and a weaponized dollar. Take a read, because he's really embraced this financial or tweet warfare, whatever you care to call it. Highly effective. The US 10-year yields are in white, and the change in the Fed balance sheet is compared with it. And it's very interesting to see. You can see the choking off of liquidity in this Home thoughts, I went back to Sun Tzu. Appear weak when you are strong, and strong when you are weak. The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. All warfare is based on deception, hence, when we are able to attack, we must seem unable. When using our forces, we must appear inactive. When we are near, we must make the enemy believe we are far away. And when far away, we must make him believe we are near. And finally, be extremely subtle, even to the point of formlessness. Be extremely mysterious, even to the point of soundlessness. Thereby, you can be the director of the opponent's fate. Just as there is love at first sight between people, there is love at first sight between a person and a place. Most of the time, however, one must return and observe to know a place. Really strong places may open up only for a few hours a year. Vaclav Chilek, the rule of return. That took me to the road in Sirikoi, in Lewa, nothing behind me, everything ahead of me. As is ever so on the road is life. Another place we visited was Mount Ololokwe. We got there by helicopter with tropic air. And then one of my really favorite places, Diani Beach. This photograph was taken in August 2015, my brother and myself. Our families walking on that beach. And then this is from the sunrise when we were there this Christmas. Rise and shine. Earl Grey gave his name to this hugely popular blend back in the 1830s, which I wasn't aware of. Today it's recognized as something of a tea time classic. Indeed it is, my favorite. Political reflections. Scott Morrison becomes Australia's 30th Prime Minister. The BBC, interpreted by Emin Jug, Australia is the real-life Game of Thrones, aka the coup capital of the democratic world, where no PM has ever served in their full term. With 5 prime ministers in as many years, Canberra has solidified its reputation as the coup capital of the democratic world. Malcolm Turnbull, the new Prime Minister, was once knifed by the leader he deposed, Tony Abbott. Kevin Rudd was ousted by Julia Gillard, but then exacted vengeance by overthrowing her. It is now over a decade since an Australian Prime Minister managed to serve out his or her first term. The Arctic's oldest and thickest sea ice breaks for the first time in history. Look at this photograph. This is what I wrote in November 2015. I cannot help feeling we're like frogs in boiling water. We've created massive interference, the cosmic tuning phenomenon. US and China reviving trade talks after a month-long standstill. This is a comparison between the two. Pepe Escobar's writing Sun Tzu and the Art of Fighting a Trade War. Imagine the Chinese leadership out of the public eye for nearly 2 weeks, virtually holed up, immersed in a secret debate. That is exactly what just happened at Baidehe, the beach resort in eastern Hebei province. While there might be James Bondish conspiracy theories out there for this annual ritual, there are no doubts about the key theme of discussions, the US-China trade war. The US national security strategy in December 2017 unmistakably labeled China a revisionist power, a strategic rival and for all practical purposes, from the Pentagon's point of view, a top threat. In fact, overall, notwithstanding all the noise, I think the target is actually China. For Trump, on the record, trade wars are good and easy to win. That reflects his fascination with the world wrestling entertainment ethos. Trump, in this case, is the Undertaker bent on taking Z to the woodshed. Z is no more Mr. Nice Guy, Trump's former good friend. And then talking about China's military adventurism, the US response to the Belt and Road Initiative, and various other points. And saying that, basically it's a long game, and that China's not going to be rolled over so easily. But my point is this, that, and I wrote about it on the 9th of July in a piece called Tariff Wars, Who Blinks First? And I said, then Trump has now turned his attention to Xi Jinping and thrown in the keys, challenging him to a chicky run, which is the equivalent of what Pepe was talking about with the WWE. How US-China trade war could chip away at the cult of Xi is another article in Asia Times. He is the most powerful leader in modern Chinese history since Mao Zedong. Last October, President Xi Jinping's thought on the socialist economy with Chinese characteristics for a new era was enshrined in a Communist Party dogma at the 19th National Congress in the fabled Great Hall of the People. Only Chairman Mao has been honored in this way while he was still alive. And talking about, the way he's treated, and saying so far Xi is showing no signs of buckling. This week he strengthened his hold on the People's Liberation Army by demanding absolute loyalty to the CCP. After all, what is at stake is his vision of the future, embossed with Chinese characteristics for a new era. And my view is that President Trump seems to be relishing his financial warfare strategies. He has Khamenei on the run, Maduro in Venezuela is being attacked by remote-controlled drone, and Xi, I said then, suddenly looks ever so fragile. 5th of March, I was talking about his making himself the president for life, and earlier, and then later in the year, I was saying this is the strongman conundrum. I was referencing Erdogan, but essentially it applies to Xi as well. If you are the strong man and have placed yourself on a pedestal, then you own the problem. This is such a crazy chart, says Thomas Biesheuvel. Trump is getting away with it, says The Economist. Indeed he is. President Trump, this is interesting, has taken to using a vocabulary that sounds uncannily like that of New York mobsters in the waning days of organized crime. For much of the 80s and 90s, the Dapper Don and the Donald vied for supremacy on the front pages of New York's tabloids. Then Don John J. Gotti died in a federal prison in 2002, while Donald J. Trump went on to be President of the United States. I know all about flipping, Mr. Trump told Fox News this week. For 30 to 40 years I've been watching flippers. Everything's wonderful, and then they get 10 years in jail and they flip on whoever the next highest one is, or as high as you can go. The president was evoking a bygone world, the outer boroughs of New York City where he grew up, a place of leafy neighborhoods and working-class families, as well as its share of shady businessmen and mob-linked politicians. From an early age, Mr. Trump encountered these raffish types with their unscrupulous methods, unsavory connections, and uncertain loyalties. Mr. Trump is comfortable with the wise guys argot of that time and place, and he defaults to it whenever he is describing his faithless lawyer or his fruitless efforts to discourage the FBI Director James Comey from investigating one of his senior advisors, Michael T. Flynn, who's gone very quiet, by the way, over his connections to Russia. When I first heard that Trump said to Comey, "Let this go," it just rang such a bell with me, said Nicholas Pileggi. Trump was surrounded by these people. Being raised in that environment, it was normalized to him. Trump honed his vocabulary over decades through his association with the lawyer Roy Cohn, who besides working for Senator Joseph McCarthy also represented mafia bosses like Mr. Gotti, Tony Salerno, Carmine Galante. He also gravitated to colourful characters like Roger Stone, the pinky ring-wearing political consultant, and Mr. Stone's one-time partner, Paul Manafort. Defending the White House counsel, Donald F. McGahn, after a report in the New York Times that he had spent 30 hours speaking to the special counsel, Robert S. Mueller, Trump wrote on Twitter that Mr. McGahn would never sell out his boss like a John Dean-type rat. I thought of the New York Mafia social clubs, an image from my days as Manhattan federal prosecutor in the 80s and 90s, Mr. Comey said, the Ravenite, the Palmer Boys, Cafe Giardino. I couldn't shake the picture, and looking back, it wasn't as odd or dramatic as I thought at the time. As I've said previously, in December 2016, Trump is a linguistic warfare specialist. And at that time I was referencing the names he gave his opponents: Crooked Hillary, Lying Ted, Little Marco, Low Energy Jeb, were devastating and terminal, but also speak to that lingua franca, that language he seems to be very comfortable in. Look at this, Sacha Baron Cohen responding to President Trump. It's hilarious. Do have a read. Jeff Sessions apparently got a little bit uptight yesterday, and I thought to myself, if Jeff Sessions is punching back, then it's entering For Whom the Bell Tolls territory. For Whom the Bell Tolls is a poem, No Man is an Island, by John Donne. No man is an island entire of itself, each is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. If a clod be washed away by the sea, Europe is the less, as well as if a promontory were, as well as if a manor of thine own, or of thine friends were. Each man's death diminishes me, for I am involved in mankind. Therefore send not to know for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee. Nancy Pelosi says she's not going anywhere. When you look at this photograph, I have to say, fancy Nancy Pelosi. And she's obviously been watching Kim's footage, because the choreography in this photograph is very noteworthy. They fancy Nancy. Rudy Giuliani says if President Trump were impeached, the American people would revolt. And that took me back to Paul Virilio, the revolutionary contingent, i.e. the people who will revolt, attains its ideal form not in the place of production, but in the street, where for a moment it stops being a cog in the technical machine, and itself becomes a motor, machine of attack, in other words, a producer of speed. Let's now move on to the currency markets. Euro dollar 115.58, dollar index 95.47, Japanese Japanese yen 111.41, Swiss franc 0.9850, the pound 128.32. The Aussie has had a bit of a recovery now that they've appointed a 0.7279. India rupee 70.165, South Korean 111.1814, Brazilian real continues to slide 411.56, Egyptian pound 17.8655, and the South African rand 14.2928, about which I'm very bearish because I see a further escalation in this situation with President Trump. This is a dollar index chart from Pinecone Macro. I think 94 is key support and we're headed to over 100. Here's the chart that shows neatly the impact of the Australian implosion on the Australian dollar. In the last 24 hours, we've had a little bit of a recovery from 0.7240. We're now at 0.7278. Euro dollar, this chart is from T Commodity. He's getting excited if it crosses 116.10. Well, it might, but I think we're going below parity eventually. Deutsche Bank has bought a stake in Modo to expand its digital payments. Modo's technology will allow us to provide new transaction services and payment alternatives for the rapidly growing digital economy, Deutsche Bank's head of cash management said. Payments are the bloodline of banking. Going forward, we'll be able to directly process payments to mobile wallets and app-based payment solutions. Modo's technology will allow us to provide new transaction services, payment alternatives, and then talking about integrating digital platforms like Jack Ma's Alipay, Tencent, WeChat, PayPal, and M-Pesa that I mentioned as well. Forget shorting Tesla, then there'll be better low-hanging fruit. Have a look at this chart. This is of Alibaba. The bearish engulfing day is once in a blue moon, says Sun Chartist. Gold, 1190 just. My target's 1150. Brent crude back above $75 a barrel. That's from Javier. That's come back strongly. Neil can be shorted on retest rallies, says Peter Brandt. He's extremely good at charts. Emerging markets will take you back to February 2018 this year when I said, interestingly, JP Morgan's MB spread is down to 258 basis points, the tightest since mid-2014. How long this lasts, I said, is anybody's guess. The emerging market currency rout deepens with Brazilian real hit hardest, South African rand, the peso, the Hungarian forint, and Turkish lira all dropped to 1% or more yesterday. I also wrote a piece in February talking about the end of Hallison days, saying that emerging markets had to come off, and indeed would come off quite violently. The Reserve Bank of India appears to have turned less aggressive in defending the rupee. Indian rupee closed at its weakest on record, 70.11. It is down 8.9% year to date. Brazil's Lula plays kingmaker from his prison cell. Apparently, everyone's marching to meet with him, and I think that's what's not helping the real. The market seems to be worried, but really he presided over an unprecedented period of prosperity. If anybody knows how to manage the Brazilian economy, I would say to him. Long exposure shot of Earth from space. Now this is of the Bab el-Mandeb, the Horn of Africa, which was exactly what I was writing about in a piece I wrote, The Indian Ocean Economy in a Port Race. This is the mighty Congo River on a cloudy day via Instagram and Mr. Bazabose. Ruling to be announced at 2 p.m. Harare time, Zimbabwe's top court to rule Friday on presidential election challenge. Highly unlikely that they're going to rule against the ruling party. Court hears Mnangagwa won the Zimbabwe poll with ghost votes, according to the Financial Times. The opposition. Lawyers for Nelson Chamisa said that Mnangagwa's official 50.5% victory tally was inflated by tens of thousands of suspect votes. November last year, I wrote about how the genie is out of the bottle, and indeed it is. The Economist says the arrest of Bobi Wine has shaken Uganda. The state risks turning the popular singer into a populist icon. That's exactly the problem. Mr. Wine has become the unofficial spokesman for young people disillusioned with the Yoweri Museveni. Calling himself the ghetto president, Mr. Wine rose to fame as a dreadlocked pop star who drove fast cars and dissed his rivals. He sang about girls naturally, but also about mistreated street traders. He calls his songs edutainment, music with a message. In 2015, other stars took money to record a campaign anthem for Mr. Mussolini. Mr. Wine wrote his own hit, calling for peaceful elections and a handover of power. In a little over a year, Mr. Wine has overthrown the conventions of Ugandan politics. For 3 decades, the dominant figures in both the government and the opposition have been veterans of the Bush War that brought Mr. Mussolini to power. Mr. Wine was a toddler then. He speaks in a way that appeals to the restless young masses. The median age in Uganda is 16. He sings about the situation a person faces: unemployment, poor health, poor education, says one young man. Mr. Wine's critic says he has no party, no ideas, that until now he has not experienced state brutality, a rite of passage for opposition politicians. Mr. Mussolini condescendingly calls him our grandson, the indisciplined MP, Mr. Wine. But the regime is rattled by him. By resorting to violence, the state only accelerates his transformation from weed-smoking celebrity to populist icon. When leaders become misleaders, he sings, the opposition must become opposition. He's been charged with treason. The Ugandan police are now surrounding the homes of opposition members after these protests. They're under preventative detention, they call it, Besige as well. The government is denying the assault accusation is rubbish. But have a listen to Simon Wolf of Amsterdam and Partners and what he said. Lawyer for Bobby Wine. And again, I think what we're watching unfold is what I wrote about in November 2014 under an article about Ouagadougou. And I said, what's clear is that a very young, very informed, very connected African youth demographic, many characterize it as a demographic dividend, which for beautiful Blaise turned into a demographic terminator, is set to alter the existing equilibrium between the rulers and the subjects, and rebalancing has begun. I also said, one of the more of Kaguta Museveni's the same is just not tenable, and I wonder if he realizes this, or is there someone capable of telling him exactly that? President Trump wants Secretary Pompeo to study the killing of farmers in South Africa. Said on Wednesday to ask Secretary of State Mike Pompeo to study South African land and farm seizures and the killing of farmers, prompting Pretoria to accuse Trump of stoking racial tensions. The rand dropped more than 1.5% in early trade. I've asked Secretary Pompeo to closely study the South African land and farm seizures and expropriations and large-scale killing of farmers. Tweet appeared to be a response to Fox News report on Wednesday that focused on South Africa's land issue and murders of white farmers. Ramaphosa's spokesman said Trump was misinformed. South Africa totally rejects this narrow perception, which only seeks to divide our nation and reminds us of our colonial past. So we got a whole debate going there, and I thought to myself, if you look at it just from a political point of view, it really has all the ingredients to go fully fledged, because it plays like sweet music to Trump's hardcore base. I'm talking about, obviously, there's some other supporters for that hardcore base. This feeds into that. And I think if this goes fully fledged and the rand goes to 17, Corker calls Trump's South Africa tweet a base simulator. That's exactly what I mean. There are portions of those who support the president that are, I'm sure, that generates excitement. I mean, yes, if you know what I'm saying. Donald Trump, white victimhood in the South African far right, interesting article in The Conversation. And as I said, he seems to be relishing his financial warfare strategies. South African all shares down 2.18% year to date. Emerging markets slide as Trump's tweet sunk the rand, but it's recovered a little bit, but I still think it's headed to 17. Egyptian pound, which has turned out to be an unlikely safe haven in this strong dollar environment, is at 17.8650. Nigerian all share down 7.94%. Year-to-date, Ghana Stock Exchange up 11.18% year-to-date. Interesting developments at the State Bank of Mauritius, where the CEO Raj Dusoye has resigned following a probe on fraudulent loans to Kenya's Kwale sugar owners. There is a communique from SBM about this very thing. That link is on the website as well, and on Rich Wrap-Ups. Britain has reported first half earnings per share declined 13.725%, but remember that they've issued a whole lot of new shares, so there's been a dilutive effect. Gross earned premiums up 11.477%, investment income up 32%, total revenue up 14.67%, operating and other expenses up 11.571%, profit before tax up 6.55%, profit after tax down 1.414%, EPS down 13.725%, total assets 112.41 billion, cash and cash equivalents at the end of the year 12.02 billion. Of course, Africa Invest is a shareholder now with 14.3%. IFC also put in 3.6 billion shillings. They're saying that the insurance business increased by 11% over this period. So my conclusions are headline growth in premiums of 11.477%, total revenue up 14.67%. IFC and Africa Invest now on the shareholder register. They have a regional footprint. I think it's a compelling medium-term prospect. Have a listen to an interview I did with Dr. Wairegi on the occasion of the Africa Invest investment. They've also decided to redeem early the 6 billion shilling, 13% corporate bond. It has a 5-year maturity, which was issued in 2014, so they're going to put some cash to work doing that. Kenya Reinsurance reported first half earnings per share declined 24.138%. Gross premiums written were down 15.617%. Investment income bumped up 13.946%. Total income down 5.6%. Profit before tax down 23.429%. EPS down 24.138%. Look, it remains inexpensive on a PE basis, but that has been the way for eternity. International business, which contributes 40% of the firm's reinsurance premiums, took a hit. Gross premiums written declined by 16% for the 6-month period. This is due to overall loss of business across key markets, including Ghana, Nigeria, India, Ethiopia, and Nepal, due to domestication. Kenya Re draws most of its gross premiums from the local market, where it will continue to enjoy mandatory cession of 20% until 2020. As I said, East African Cables reported a loss, first half loss of 1 shilling and 1 cent. Turnover was down 40.642% to 872.577 million. They've reported a loss before tax of 433.559 million versus 331.806 million. Total equity is now worth 1.87 billion and the market cap is 860 million. UBA Group Nairobi, in a statement Wednesday, said the decision to take over Arm Cement was not influenced by its ties with Aliko Dangote. Nairobi all shares up 1.23%, NSE 20 is down 10.96%. Wishing you a splendid weekend.